talking about is Green Party policy. It's a tricky one. It's like, as you might have noticed, I prefaced lots of things I said by saying this all sounds a bit technical. And land value tax is one of those things because it's an idea that's been around for at least a century. Indeed, it's one of the few areas where I get to say I agree with Winston Churchill. That's not something I say very often, but Winston Churchill actually, this is the young Winston Churchill, not the later Winston Churchill, actually expressed the argument for land value tax very well. And I'm paraphrasing a paragraph that he wrote, which is basically that if you have a landowner and society builds a railway, and society builds a road, and society builds a whole lot of structures around his land, and the value of the land has gone up enormously, why should the landowner just benefit from that increase in value of all of those structures that society provided? And that really is the underlying philosophy of land value tax. What it means in simple terms is that you are taxed each year on the unimproved value of the land, the best possible use that that land could have, the value that it would have. So a good example is supermarkets. We hear tell that supermarkets often buy up big blocks of land and sit on them for years that they might or might not be going to build a supermarket on. In fact, there's a lot of allegations, I'm not sure they've been proved, but I don't think anyone really doubts them, that some supermarkets go around and buy up land so their competitors can't build a competing store. Now, if you had land value tax, and the value of that land would be quite high if it had a supermarket on it, then they'd have to pay a large figure every year. And as you say, another very good example of that is a house building developer who's sitting on large blocks of land. And we hear this government talking a lot about how the fact of, it's all the red tape in planning, isn't it so terrible, the red tape is stopping the home builders building. But actually, what we have are two things. We have, first of all, an issue again coming back to the banks, that it's very hard to get, it has been very hard to get finance. But also you've got an issue that the people are just sitting on that land until they can get the maximum profit from it. If the market's a bit flat and prices aren't very high and haven't gone up for a couple of years, well, if you just sit on it for a couple more years, hopefully there'll be another housing boom. Maybe the government will create another housing boom, as you've just suggested. And then that's the time you want to build houses on it. So we do, land value tax would actually tackle a lot of issues. It's one of the foundational changes that we very much need. But I think just to look very briefly at the broader issue of housing, there is a little known fact that I think is quite important. We now have more bedrooms per person in Britain than we have ever had before. We've got a housing crisis, but we've also got more bedrooms per person. And what part of this problem is a reflection of the general inequality, the rising levels of inequality. And, of course, the other thing it very much relates to is the fact we've built no council housing and very, very little social housing for a very long time, while we've allowed the stocks to collapse as a result of right to buy. And, we do need a big building program. We need a big council house building program. Yeah.